Why do we often have the feeling that history repeats itself? That something that happens now has already happened before, although perhaps in a slightly different way. Could it be that, in effect, history repeats itself, and we humans tend to replicate situations already experienced by previous generations? If so, perhaps we could develop a method to extrapolate the past and predict what may happen to us in the future. In this sense, being curious about the experiences already lived would become a way of determining possible futures. Such a method may exist. In his fantastic book The 5 Laws to Foresee the Future, the Japanese engineer and philosopher Hiroshi Tsuchiya proposes a model that can be used to identify possible futures. The main idea of the model is that the story progresses in the form of a spiral staircase. Thus, it is not that history simply repeats itself, but rather, if we add a new dimension to the analysis, what we observe is that in reality, some progress has been made with respect to what would seem to be the same, reissued. A simple drawing to illustrate an example can help to understand the model. A few decades ago, not so many, we all wrote letters, postcards, etc. Later, we replaced those written messages with spoken conversations over the phone. A very different way of communicating. Later, the internet brought us emails, and we went back to write. Systems such as WhatsApp or WeChat have demonstrated the usefulness of writing messages, now no longer addressed to an individual, but to a group. From here we move on to sending voice messages. Sending voice with WhatsApp becomes a kind of new phone call. Then to write blogs. Later to make the video conference, with instruments like Zoom, part of our daily normality. It is a new form of spoken conversation. This example shows how, although it seems that we are constantly returning to the previous forms of communication, in reality, we have always been advancing in the way we communicate, since in each turn of the screw, we have improved in the perception of added value. Let's look at another example. Centuries ago, people who received an education did so thanks to a private instructor. The aristocrats, for example, with a personalized education. Later, in the 19th century, a more industrial process of mass education, of teaching in classrooms for the entire population, was passed. Now perhaps we will move on to a personalized education process for each individual, thanks to the possibilities of individual treatment that digital technologies allow. And in the future, we may return to a mass-personalized education, in classrooms, in which each student follows their own personalized program, defined using artificial intelligence tools, but at the same time enjoys the advantages of the socialization of learning. The spiral method consists then in visualizing the evolution of a concept throughout history, in order to realize that we have frequently returned to the same thing, but with a subtle advance in the nut of the spiral. The model can be applied to draw the spiral staircase path of a certain product, service, etc. With this we can systematically apply our curiosity to try to understand what awaits us in the future, based on what we have already experienced.